Today we're talking about compound inequalities. Compound inequalities are when you have basically two inequalities that you graph together. It's either an and inequality or an or inequality. When you have an and inequality, they have a tendency to graph together. So it's going to look like this, like a barbell. Now, one might be open, one might be closed, but I like to think of it as a barbell, like if you lift weights or are in athletic strength training, you know what I mean. Okay, and then an or inequality, those have a tendency to graph separately. So split apart. So that maybe one of them goes this direction and then the other one goes that direction. That's what I mean by separate. They're split apart. So let's graph these two examples. An and inequality, let's see, it says that x is greater than or equal to -6. So I'll put a closed circle there because it's or equal to. Less than or equal to -1, less than or equal to 1. It's greater than 6, which would go that way. It's less than 1, so it's actually just this space in between them. Another way to write this would be it's less than or equal to 1, and it's greater than or equal to -6. So it's the x values in between those because it is and. And then or inequalities are separate and split apart. X value is less than or equal to -2. That goes that way. Greater than 3, open circle at 3, and it's greater than. So notice the difference. The one over here on the right, the or inequality, it's two separate inequalities just graphed on the same line, whereas the and inequality ends up being one thing together because what it's saying is the x values greater than that and less than that. So I kind of showed you this already, but when we have an and inequality, something like this, where it's x is less than 5 and x greater than 1, we write that so x is in the middle, and this is how I want to see you write it, with the smaller number on the left and the bigger number on the right. So 1 is over here, 5 is over there, x is less than 5, and x is greater than 1. Both of your signs should be facing towards the right. So it now reads the same way, greater than 1, less than 5. This is how I want to see you write it from here on out. We will now write each sentence as an inequality and then graph the inequality. So a number x is greater than -8 and less than or equal to 4. So x is greater than or equal to -8, and literally write out what it says, and x is less than or equal to 4. But if you remember from just a second ago, I want you to write it like this, combined into basically one big inequality. So the x goes in the middle, smaller number on the left, which is, yes, -8, and bigger number on the right, which is +4. And then I'll take these signs and put them in between. So this greater than or equal to, I'll have to flip around to make it work so that it still reads the same thing right to left. And then less than or equal to 4. My signs always face with like the alligator mouth thing pointing to the right. Let's graph it. We're not going to fill in all the extra numbers, but we will put -8 and 4 on our number line. It's x values in between -8 and -4. They both have the or equal to, so they're both solid. and its x values in between that because it's an and inequality. It has to be greater than -8 and less than 4. A number y is at most 0 or at least 2. If it's at most 0, then it can be less than 0, and it can also be equal to 0. So at most is less than or equal to, and then it says or, so write that, at least 2. So we want 2 or greater. And this is an or inequality, so I leave it like that. Let's graph at 0 and 2. It's going to be less than or equal to 0. That's a solid circle left. And greater than or equal to 2. Solid circle to the right. A number d is more than 0, and d is also less than 10. I don't want you to leave it like this. Put the variable in the middle, bigger number, smaller number, and then take your signs. So this one goes here, and this one goes here. So it's the d values in between 0 and 10 because we're talking about an and inequality. Let's write these numbers on the number line. And they're both less than, so open circles, and it's going to be a barbell kind of shape because it's an and inequality. When we go to write compound inequalities from a graph, then we put our lower number on the left, our bigger number on the right, if it's an and inequality, and the x goes in the middle. So that's this one here, and you've kind of already seen that. My signs should face, when I have an and inequality, they should face like that. It might be or equal to, it just depends on the problem. And then if we're talking about or inequalities, then you will have two different inequalities separated by an or. And then your signs would go here. So we're going to look at these graphs and we will write the compound inequality. Number 1. All right. This is a barbell kind of shape, so this is an and inequality. And we'll use x as our variable. So the x values, I want the smaller number on the left, bigger number on the right, which since you have a number line, it's already basically done for you. So -1 is my smaller number, and 2 is my larger number. These are open circles. My signs always go like facing to the right, like this. They're open circles. So I do not put the or equal to, and now check it and make sure it makes sense. X is greater than -1. X is less than 2. You're saying the x values in between -1 and 2, which is what we got. Let's look at number 2. This is the barbell shape, so again we have an and inequality. The x goes in the middle, and then your two numbers, smallest to greatest, 0 and 3. My signs always face to the right when we write compound inequalities. Since this one is a closed circle, it should be or equal to. Since this one is an open circle, it should be with no equal sign. Number 3 is an or inequality, so I will write them separately with an or in the middle. Okay, just one at a time. This one over here on the left, it's got a closed circle and it goes left. So that is x values less than or equal to -3. The one on the right is an open circle. It's x values greater than 2. You write them separately with an or in the middle, and it doesn't matter which way your signs face, so long as it just makes sense for this problem. Last one, we have an or inequality again because it's split apart. So you'll write two separate inequalities with an or in between. Over here, I've got an open circle going left. So it's going to be x values less than -1. Over here, I have an open circle to the right, x values greater than 2.